Hello, everybody. Welcome to ELA. Today, we're going to be learning about a very important inventor, Alexander Graham Bell. Bell invented the very first telephone. So, the very first telephone used very thin metal wires to carry sound from one place to the next. Before we discuss Alexander Graham Bell any further, I'd like to review an event that took place in chapter 7 of our book, Anne of Green Gables, and then we'll get back to Bell. But you guys are going to see the connection as we discuss further. So in the book, in chapter 7, Diana runs to Anne's house for help. Diana's baby sister was very sick and she didn't know what to do. So do you guys remember that in chapter 7? Minnie May, Diana's sister, was very sick, and even though she wasn't allowed to be friends with Anne, Diana ran to the house looking for help. So I'd like to read aloud a small part from chapter 7. So as I'm reading, just listen, pay attention, and have this refresh your memory, okay? I'm going to read it once, then I'm going to ask you guys to think about 2 questions, and I'm going to read it again. Okay. "I'll hitch the horse to the wagon and go get Dr. Spencer," said Matthew. "Anne, you go back to the Barrys' house with Diana." The girls raced through the snow to Diana's house. Anne looked at Minnie May for a few moments. Minnie May was gasping for air. Anne opened the bottle of medicine and poured a little bit of it into the baby's mouth. Minnie May coughed and choked and cried. Anne gave the baby more and more of the medicine. Then suddenly, Minnie May began to breathe more easily. Okay, so hopefully that refreshed your memory from that event from chapter 7. Now I'm going to read that part again. And as I'm reading it, I want you guys to think about these 2 questions. 1, what did Matthew do to help Diana? And the second question is, what did Anne do to help Diana and Minnie May? So how did Matthew help and how did Anne help? All right, so pay attention to those 2 things as I read it again. "I'll hitch the horse to the wagon and go get Dr. Spencer," said Matthew. "Anne, you go back to the Barrys' house with Diana." The girls raced through the snow to Diana's house. Anne looked at Minnie May for a few moments. Minnie May was gasping for air. Anne opened the bottle of medicine and poured a little bit of it into the baby's mouth. Minnie May coughed and choked and cried. Anne gave the baby more and more of the medicine. Then suddenly, Minnie May began to breathe more easily. Okay, so now that we've listened to the story twice, what was it that Matthew did to help Diana and Minnie May? Think about it. What did he do? Okay, so first of all, he helped hitch the horse to the wagon, right? And also he went to go get Dr. Spencer. So that's what Matthew did to help. Now how about Anne? How did Anne help Diana and Minnie May? What did she do? Well, first of all, she raced to Diana's house with Diana, right? She examined Minnie May, and then she said she knew what was wrong with the baby because she had taken care of 2 sets of twins, right? Her siblings before she moved to Green Gables. So Anne knew what medicine to give to Minnie May, and she was able to help her and get her to start breathing again. Okay, so that's how Matthew and Anne both helped. So now we're going to move away from the book and on to Alexander Graham Bell. So his invention could have changed the way that Diana, Matthew, and Anne were able to help Minnie May. All right, so let's read to find out. 1, where did Alexander Graham Bell live? What did he invent? When did he invent these things? And what could his inventions do? So as I read the article, I'd like you to be thinking about those things. I'm going to read it first out loud to you guys. Then you will have your own copy to reread on your own. And after that, you'll answer the Google form questions and make sure that you press submit. Okay, let's read aloud the article, Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone. Today, there are more than 5 billion phones in the world. There's a lot of phones. But for Anne Shirley, phones were a new thing. Diana Barry couldn't call 911 when Minnie Mae got sick. Diana didn't have a phone. Let's find out about a man who invented a telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. So, back when the story Anne of Green Gables was taking place, they didn't have phones to call 911. So that's why I said this invention would have come in handy if Diana had had a telephone. Alexander Graham Bell lived around the same time as the story of Anne of Green Gables. He lived near the place where Anne Shirley lived in Canada. If Anne had been a real person, she might have met Bell. Wow, that's so interesting. So if you guys were to look at your article, you'll notice that they're showing you where Alexander Graham Bell lives, and he lived very close to Anne. He lived in somewhere called Nova Scotia, which is right here in red. And then over here, really close by in blue, is Prince Edward Island, where we know that Anne of Green Gables is from. So that's why they said they lived so close to each other. Maybe they would have met had Anne been a real person. Bell's mother and his wife were both deaf. That means that they couldn't hear. They were both deaf, his wife and his mother. So Bell was very interested in how people speak and how people hear. He knew that sounds travel through the air. He discovered that sounds can also travel through thin metal wires. The first telephones used wires to carry sound from one person to another person far away. Bell also invented other things. For example, he invented a metal detector. So not only did he invent the telephone, he also invented something else important, the metal detector. I know all of you guys have been to the beach. Maybe you've seen a person walking around with like a kind of long looking stick, maybe a little like a broom, but it's metal, and they're digging in the sand looking for coins or some other type of treasures. That's a metal detector. It can detect when things that are made out of metal are somewhere where you might not be able to see it with just your eyes. A metal detector can find metal that is hidden in the ground, like I just said. Why did he do this? Well, in 1881, the President of the United States, James Garfield, had been shot. Bell wanted to help doctors find the bullet inside the president's body. The metal detector worked even though the president later died. Wow, that's so interesting. So he invented the metal detector to help find a bullet that was hidden inside of a president's body who had been shot. It also says that Bell invented the telephone in 1876, and it shows us a picture of the president, James Garfield, who Bell rescued or tried to rescue with his metal detector. All right, I hope you guys found this article interesting. Now you're going to reread on your own and answer and submit your questions. All right, good job, guys.